In this episode of Burnout to Brilliance, we are going to address what is psychosocial risk and how can three ways that we can avoid it. So, psychosocial risk and hazards is something that we've been identifying in the workplace forever, and it's been happening for such a long time. But recently in Australia, you now, as a business, as a corporation, if you hire employees, you now have a legislative workplace health and safety requirement to address risk factors, psychosocial hazards around psychosocial risk. So, the thing about psychosocial risk, just like any workplace health and safety thing, is most businesses, most corporations will roll their eyes and get really frustrated because it's one of those things that as a society, it's really good. But as a business and a corporation, it might be a pain in the ass trying to fit this all in and feeling like it's a bit vague, like anything could happen. And now you're accountable for your staff's psychosocial well-being. And sometimes I worry that this is going to reduce how many people actually get employed, which means it'll reduce how many people can get loans from the bank. There's really major impacts from this. But if you're going through this, so this is a big business thing, and even a small business thing. If you've got employees, you can have one employee and you're in charge of their psychosocial risk. But it's important that whether you have a business or not, whether you employ staff or not, or maybe you employ lots and lots of staff, regardless, I think understanding what psychosocial risk is both for yourself and for anyone you might work with or hire is important because it really is a big societal change, and it's good. It's almost like when they implemented the 8-hour workday, because when the Industrial Revolution happened, they wanted people working 12, 14-hour days. And so, as big corporations and businesses, they would have been pissed off because now workers have rights. But really, we all know that that's what's good for society, families, etc. This is kind of like that, where this is good for society as a whole, but it might be annoying to you. So, what is psychosocial risk? What are some examples of a psychosocial risk, and what is considered a psychosocial hazard? So, hazards and risk. So, I'm just going to read this out to you. So, psychosocial risk factors refer to environmental, social, and psychological circumstances that can negatively impact an individual's well-being and mental health, also known as the stuff that'll burn you out and leave a major impact for you, which is also known as trauma. Trauma is anything that leaves a lasting impact on you and your nervous system. So, again, workplace bullying, things like that can be considered trauma if it leaves a long lasting impact for you. So, if you have, you know, if you have difficulty getting a job or going to work because of the workplace bullying you've experienced, it's those sorts of things. So, some examples of psychosocial risks include work-related stress and burnout, which is why it's on our Burnout to Brilliance podcast today. It's a lack of social support networks and feeling isolated, traumatic events such as abuse or bullying, unhealthy relationships and domestic violence, socioeconomic instability, including poverty and unemployment, cultural and societal pressures, including racism and discrimination. So, identifying and addressing these psychosocial risks is crucial for promoting mental health and providing effective support services in the workplace. Now, you might be listening to this going, Sheena, I don't hire any staff, but I want you to understand that if you want a long-term career, if you want to be at the top of your game, if you want to be an industry leader, you too need to understand the impacts of these psychosocial risks on yourself, but also on the people around you. Because here's the thing is that our teams, the people who work intimately with us day in, day out, we all feed off each other's energy. We all co-regulate each other. So I think we've all had that experience where someone really, really strung out, anxious, maybe who's in a state of panic has walked into the room and the energy has shifted. And it's really hard for some people not to get affected by that energy, or you can really, you start to panic, or maybe that panic sets into someone else and then that person, and then all of a sudden a room full of 10 people where 2 people were panicked, now it's 5 people, and it just has this contagion effect. But it also can go the other way, where we've all had that experience of maybe we feel anxious, stressed out, and somebody else comes who's got a really calm, soft, soothing presence, and it helps regulate us back down. So this is really important, whether, when you're working closely with people, it's really important to understand that these hazards and risks can affect both you, but also them. So I think that the important thing to remember about burnout, about trauma, about anything major that happens in life and in a workplace is that 2 people could go through the exact same experience and have completely different reactions to that based on their proximity to people, how they interpreted that, what was going through their mind at the time, if it's triggering any old wounds of theirs. So again, 2 people could experience workplace bullying. One has a long-lasting effect from that, and maybe it's because, they were going through other things at the time, like maybe they were going through a divorce or their job was stressful or whatever, and that workplace bullying just tipped them over. Or maybe they had some childhood stuff around bullying and it really brought up a whole bunch of unprocessed trauma. And so they felt it very deeply versus someone who, or maybe, again, the opposite, someone who already has experienced workplace bullying, they managed it, they know how to deal with it. And so now they're going through a similar experience. They sort of feel like they've got a handle on it. Again, 2 very different experiences, 2 different people. So what are some 3 ways to avoid psychosocial risk and avoid some of these hazards, whether it's you're working solo, whether you have staff underneath you, whether you're in a workplace, whether you're managing staff, managing employees? What are some things that you can do to avoid it or really make sure that this isn't going to have a major long-lasting impact on you? Again, the long hours, the lack of support, traumatic events, all of that. So if something happens in the workplace, or if you're feeling out of sorts, bullied, isolated, or if someone's expressing they feel that way, it's not for us to judge whether that is an appropriate reaction or not. So if someone comes to you and says they feel bullied, they feel isolated, they feel like they weren't supported in a situation, it is so, so, so crucial to validate that experience, to not play it down, and to offer support. So number 1 is always going to be having an EAP or a therapist on standby. So again, if you're interested in our corporate services, you can reach out, send us an email, hello@savasanacollective.com, or connect with us. We can help you sort this out. But having an EAP service on standby, having our therapist services on standby to your leadership team. So making sure your leadership team, or whoever's a leader, it could be you could be the CEO of your business, regardless, making sure you've got someone on standby to call, to ask, how do I manage this situation? Let me debrief on this situation. Making sure that you really emotionally validate the experience and not try to rush past it. So it's really, really important to never put out what you think someone should have reacted like. You might think someone should only have a 2 out of 10 reaction to an event, but if they're expressing, I feel 10 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, let them express that and don't try to minimize that. Excuse me, because if you minimize someone's experience right after they've gone through it, this is going to exacerbate their symptoms. They're going to feel it even worse, and they're going to feel even less supported. This is including you. So if you are someone, you've just gone through something, I want you to remember that if somebody, the first person you go to for support, if they react negatively, like, oh, that's nothing, why are you reacting like that? Or, oh, I've gone through so much worse, make it about them. Or, okay, don't worry about it, let's just get back to work. And they very much dismiss your feelings, they dismiss your experience. What happens is that often that experience gets far worse. And so that's why, whether you're working solo, wherever, it's really important to make sure you connect with someone who is going to validate that experience. Or if you're managing staff, your reactions in the short term, right after an incident or right after someone has expressed their emotions, is so crucial to the trajectory of what's going to happen for them. So remember that. So, second way to avoid psychosocial hazards or, again, the burnout, the trauma, is having breaks and taking leave. A lot of businesses do not want people to take breaks or leave. A lot of businesses will reward people if they've got employees. They'll pay out their leave and go, oh, look, you didn't use your leave. Let me pay you out. We don't want people using leave. Or if you're a small business owner, it can be a really big, major impact if someone's a significant on the team or someone who knows the ropes is on leave for a significant amount of time. But we need to remember that we can't leave ourselves vulnerable by putting all our eggs in one staff member. So making sure that your business and life and whatever is robust enough to have those breaks and leave for anyone in the team, because it's really, really important so that you don't end up on work cover or people don't end up on work cover, or end up quitting altogether, and then you have to recruit again for that role. Even if you're a business owner, if you don't want to completely burn out and quit your business that you put time, money, energy into, take a break. And if your business isn't set up that you can take a break, that's an issue. But remember, again, unless you're in the medical industries like paramedics or emergency or brain surgery, a lot of this isn't life or death. So even if you had to message clients and say, hey, there's going to be a delay, it's not the end of the world. It will feel like it for some. And again, this is why we go back to the first point, have an EAP, have a therapist on board to talk you through those emotions of feeling like you're letting people down, feeling like projects are behind, deadlines are behind, but recognizing it's not the end of the world. And how can we protect against it? How can we create business strategies that are sustainable so that we can predict these ebbs and flows? Because these sorts of things are almost inevitable. Everyone will experience some, crazy thing happen in their work that's so left of center. We've all had that. I've had that already in my career. I've helped people manage through that. So just remember that. Okay, so we've talked about having an EAP therapist on standby, having breaks and leave, but also a third thing that you might want to consider, which seems really bold and really out there, but it is working in a way that works for people. So whether that's your staff members, whether that's you, can you make the work schedule more flexible so that people can actually take care of themselves? So whether that is hybrid models of working in the office and working from home, whether that is, instead of paying people for their time, paying people for their output. So, or letting people know it's okay, you can have some flexibility here. I don't care if you want to do a couple of long days and then have a long weekend, or, let people do what works for them. So if they want to say, if they're a part-timer and they go, actually, I just want to work 4 hours, 5 days a week, rather than 2 10-hour shifts, let them. Let people have flexibility on what works for them. If they want to start at 6 a.m. because they're a morning person, or they come to you and you go, what would work for you? Would you prefer to have late starts, early mornings? Would you prefer to start early, finish early, start late, finish late? Would you like some mixed time working from home? Again, this doesn't even have to be forever, but making sure, and again, even if you're working solo, doing this for yourself, really asking, when do I work the best? And how can I regulate myself? What would really help regulate my nervous system? If I still had to work, I couldn't take a whole week off, or maybe I've taken a couple of weeks off from the incident or whatever's happening, and I can feel I'm still quite burnt out. I'm not fully ready to go back to normal. So I want to take some incremental steps to come back to work. What is that going to look like? What would work for me? What would support me and my nervous system and my life right now? And go with that and be flexible and do something modern and new, because that is what true leadership is. True leadership is showing innovation and supporting people. Because here's the thing, is that we all know when staff members are supported, when their nervous system's regulated, better creativity, better problem solving, higher profits, lower turnover, less levels of burnout. This includes you if you're working solo and you're a solopreneur listening to this. So, and I want you to remember that this is legislated now in Australia, okay? So I looked it up, and you can be charged up to $10 million if this is breached. And there are so many organizations who are not meeting their needs right now. Yeah, because they might not even know how badly like this exists, or how badly they need to improve things. So, psychosocial risk, that is what it is. Those are the hazards. The three ways that you can avoid them or do something about it is breaks, taking breaks and having leave, encouraging that, making sure people do that, including yourself, even if it pushes a deadline out, it's not the end of the world. Having an EAP and a therapist on standby. Again, we can support you with all of this, and making sure that you have some flexibility in the way that you work and understand what is going to be supportive for you, your staff, and your business. How can you be innovative in the way people work and get the best out of them, and really support them through something that is going to be major in their life and really could affect them long term if not handled correctly? All right, beautiful souls, I'm so thankful that you were here for another episode of Burnout to Brilliance. Don't forget to take our quiz, check out our things. You can book a clarity call if this clicked something for you and you're like, Sheena, I want to book a clarity call. Let's do it. These are our power sessions that you will have with me. They're 60 to 90 minutes. And we are going to nut out a whole plan for whatever you need. Or if you want to have a free consult with me about your business or about your career or anything like that, my job is to get women to the top without the burnout. All right, beautiful souls, have a wonderful day, wonderful week, and I will see you in the next episode of Burnout to Brilliance. Bye for now.